we need to get cracking with it. But yeah, thanks for sharing thoughts on that. I think it'll be a good one to do. Okay, welcome everybody to Brain Food Live on air, bringing it to you. Yes, we are doing another Brain Food Live special midweek on Wednesday. This is turning into kind of a regular, semi-regular thing for us. And the reason why is because we wanted to do something a little bit different on the Wednesday slot. Typically, we want to bring more understanding of the products. We're going to do more product demos, but we also want to do more case studies. In other words, we hear a lot about innovation. We hear a lot about technology, but let's hear about like real life sort of examples of deployment and what recruiters have learned from doing it. And this is why we're doing this Wednesday slot. Hopefully you enjoy it and get something out of the day. So anyway, my co-pilot for today is my brother from another mother. It's Tommy Lai. Tommy, great to see you, mate. Why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you and what it is you do, Tommy?
Okay, sure, Hung. Thanks for the invitation. So my name's Tommy. So I'm the marketing director for Olio. And Olio is a leader in human-centric AI-powered ATS and AI recruitment tech that you can use alongside your existing HR systems or ATS. And our tools are all about handling the heavy lifting. Could be from AI screen of candidates and skills assessment to eliminating bias to engaging candidates 24/7 with conversational chatbots, that type of thing. And it's all about freeing you up, freeing recruiters up, recruitment teams, the wider teams, to focus on building genuine connections and making those crucial nuanced hiring decisions that only humans can make. So it's all about technology that's fairness, transparent, and compliance. So we're not here to replace humans. We're here to support humans. So yeah, that's me, and that's what we do.
Fantastic stuff. Great to share, Tommy. And Olio are actually quite well known within the industry. There's lots of sectors, in fact, that Olio have got great sort of reputation and penetration with. And where are those areas, Tommy? Like where you guys are particularly strong?
Okay, so we serve all sectors, but we're particularly strong in financial services, public sector broadly, early careers hiring. And actually, we have particular great strength and depth and heritage in police recruitment as well. And I believe the current stat is something like almost 70% of England police forces use Olio systems and technology, and 100% of Scotland and Wales, and hopefully soon other regions and countries too.
That's fantastic. That's something I didn't know. But again, fascinating. I wanted to always do like a topic where we're looking at what I call like unique organizations. Like it's organized. It's not just another software company or another insurance house or another retail or a hotel. What is it? What are the unique challenges when it comes down to recruiting for the police services? Something I don't know anything about, but I'm very excited to learn more about it today. That is the topic of today's show, folks. How do police services recruit? Particularly, we've got some experienced TA leaders coming in from Police Scotland. I think Derbyshire Police Force as well. And we're going to talk about, how do we recruit? By the way, bit of context. 250,000 people work for the police services throughout the UK. I believe something like 150,000 or so are actually frontline police officers, but there's also about 100,000 plus that are all kinds of support people that support this essential service. So we're looking at a very interesting type of person, different skill sets and so on. How does it all work? Anyway, that's the topic of today. Just want to make sure before we go any much further whether audio and visual is fine. So listen, if you've heard me and Tommy speak for the last 4 minutes or so, let me know in the chat and the comments whether the audio and visual is fine. We are broadcasting this on LinkedIn as well. I can see LinkedIn's working on at least my LinkedIn. So if you're watching this on LinkedIn and you can hear me okay, just let me know in the comments whether the audio and visual is okay. And then we'll get on with the show. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Haley. Fantastic stuff. Okay, cool. Let's get on with the show. Let's bring on our guests here, Tommy. You're going to help me kind of interview these five people because I don't know anything about recruiting for the police at all. But I'd be very interested to hear from all of these folks what they can tell us about it. Fascinating stuff. My recruitment career was always pretty boring. I was in tech, so I recruited software people. So I know not to say software people are boring, but probably a lot of people are familiar with doing that type of recruitment. How do you recruit a police officer? I haven't got a clue. It's super interesting. Oh, we have Ben here as well. We have Lorna. Looks like everyone's here. Fantastic stuff. Lorna, I think you're going to come on to us, sort of come on screen in a sec. Just get the camera on. But whilst that's happening, Ben, why don't we introduce you first? Can you quickly intro yourself? Who are you? What it is you do, Ben?
Absolutely, and good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Ben Hopkins. I am a customer success manager here at Olio, looking after the majority of our police customers across the patch. Prior to that, I spent many years working as talent acquisition specialist for many years within a policing organisation called Avon and Somerset Police, ironically bringing in the Olio system. So I'm kind of sat the other side of the fence now from a 360 of policing.
Very interesting as well. So you've seen it from both sides, Ben. That's brilliant to have you on the show and join us with this.
Absolutely.
That's good stuff. And we have Sally Winfield here as well. Sally, thanks for joining the show. Can you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you and what it is you do?
Thanks, Hung. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sally Winfield. I'm an HR project officer in the shared HR service centre for Derbyshire Constabulary and Leicestershire Police. My background is HR systems, and in this role, I predominantly am responsible for the maintenance, development, and support for our applicant tracking system, which is Olio. So I sort of do the requirements gathering for any changes, support the teams through the changes, do training, that kind of thing.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for joining us, Sally. Lorna, I can see sort of you're kind of on the call, but maybe struggling a little bit with the AV. We're going to hopefully try and get this fixed. I can suggest basically refreshing the screen, coming back, give that a shot and see if you can come and join us. I'm gonna just make sure that is let's do yeah, that's it. Ben, whilst Lorna's sort of on with that, why don't we go with you first? Tell us a little bit about sort of the size, scale, complexity of the police services. Was I correct in kind of outlining the sort of the numbers there?
It's huge. Yeah, it's huge. The numbers don't even sort of scratch the surface to the amount of people. There tends to be this sort of mindset that what you see of a police officer is that person on the street walking the beat of a uniformed officer. In most police organizations, that's probably a 50-50 split. So for every police officer you see, there is somebody behind the scenes from an administrative type role that would be classed as a staffing type role. Most police forces also, that is inherently everything that's done is in-house. So finance, payroll, HR, tech services, it's individual silos within there. So you don't really sort of scratch the surface of where you've got in terms of the complexity of the breadth of roles that are available, the types of development that's available between those kind of organizations. And literally the growth, every organization, every team has that sort of depth of knowledge of learning for expanse to drive through. Also, a lot of police forces are combined in terms of the way they work. So Sally, who's on the call today, is a combined force. They do a lot of work between Derbyshire and Leicestershire, for example. Within the Police Scotland, Lorna that's joining on the call today, they combined a lot of the force work together. It's gravities of scale in terms of actually the ability to then work as a much bigger organisation across a lot of the products and things that they deliver.
That's really interesting, and maybe something we don't quite understand. Like, we know that police forces are divided into different forces, and that makes sense, obviously, because the geographies need to be changed around. But are you saying there's essentially some shared services going on in between certain forces?
Absolutely. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So how does that work? Is that like basically bilaterally negotiated? Like, for instance, Sally, does the people in Derbyshire have a chat with somebody else in a local, sort of a neighbouring force, and you make that bilateral agreement, or is there some sort of top-down thing which makes things happen?
Our agreement is just for HR services, so it's just the HR service centre that's shared between the forces. So the forces are separate, it's just that function that's shared between the two.
Okay, so can you tell us about sort of how that decision is made to share that service? Like, how do you get to the point where that decision is made compared to operating completely by yourself?
I wasn't here for the implementation of the shared service centre, so I haven't got much background around how that decision was made, unfortunately, for our two forces. I'm not sure if you've got any wider knowledge, Ben, for other forces, because I know it does happen elsewhere as well.
Yeah, it does. Hung, I can probably come in there. So sometimes it's shared of a system or a platform. Sometimes it's a shared need in terms of logic of actually a resource. So, for instance, some police forces would be sharing it where there is a limited financial implication where we can share across. Sometimes it's a best practice. Actually, you've got two forces that join to each other doing exactly the same thing. Why are you buying two instances of something? Why are you going across two different ways? I think it's also kind of key to talk around. So anything that is any type of role where somebody is wearing a uniform, that's probably legislative from government through the College of Policing. So actually the way that they recruit, how they do something, for example, if we talk recruitment, has to be done exactly the same. So actually it's economies of scale. So if you're all doing the same thing to get the same outcome, that's really useful. If you're using therefore the same types of form to onboard somebody, using the same HRIS type system is really useful. That's where that kind of shared piece comes from. It's also a real shared knowledge because you've then widened up. I think what we'll also see is there's lots of where it may not be necessarily shared service, there's lots of conversations cross-laterally between police forces because they're all in the same boat to find the same challenges. So actually being able to communicate with each other, there's lots of regular interdepartmental meetings across. It's not I guess not a blinkered shared approach. It's very much how are we achieving this, whether it might be a complexity of financial constraint, whether it's a scared resource, those kind of things to help drive forwards the efficiencies. How are you doing something? Those time of shared service pieces are really key.
Yeah, really, really interesting. And I guess from a technology point of view, it obviously makes sense to leverage sort of the group buying power of the entire sort of organization, particularly how sort of certain I'm thinking of recruitment. A lot of products are sold on, per seat subscriptions or numbers of all, the size and scale. So the more you buy that way, in bulk, the better it is per cost per unit, cost per customer. So I guess that maybe makes sense also on buying stuff like ATSs, for instance, and getting better deals across the piece. Okay, super interesting. Let's talk about things on the hiring side. Recruitment challenges are unique to sort of police forces. Oh, we have Lorna joining us. Lorna, how are you doing? Oh, we have some audio problem there, it seems. I think, Lorna, you can hear us, but I'm not sure we can hear you. No, I think audio is no good for Lorna right now. Let's see if we can fiddle with that a little bit. Don't worry, Lorna. We'll get this sorted. But whilst we're talking about this, recruitment challenges for police sort of services generally. Most people listening to this call probably will just have a consumer level understanding of this. They say, okay, we need more people on the beat, we need more police forces in there, and then you hear another narrative to say, actually, budgets for the police force have been cut, and things need to happen there. So can you tell us a little bit from the inside out, like what have been the challenges hiring for the police over the last 5 years? What are the things that you've had to deal with there? So Sally, let's go with you on this to begin with.
Yeah, so obviously police recruitment carries an unusually high risk and scrutiny. So officers are granted obviously powers that within their role, so integrity, judgment, that kind of thing, values are critical to us recruiting to that position. Because I suppose the challenges that we face are things like the recruitment process itself can be quite lengthy. The pre-employment checks that we put in place are extensive, obviously, because we have to check that people are right for the role. So that adds sort of That'll lengthen the time to hire for the position. That adds challenges because it increases sort of candidate drop off within the whole process at different points. And we have to think about things like public trust and media scrutiny, emotional reality of policing, how that sort of further attracts attention, attraction and retention.
Yeah, really interesting. Can you give us an idea of what the length of the cycle is? Because I think everyone would agree, of course, you need to have very stringent background checks and stuff like this. But what would be the typical time to hire, let's say, for, I don't know, an entry-level person and on the as a frontline police officer?
I haven't got that to hand, but it varies obviously because of role type. So it differs, like you say, police officers will be longer than a police staff member because there's different assessment sort of sections as you go through. So there's assessments and interviews, then you get through to pre-employment checks. Pre-employment checks themselves can take up to sort of 6 to 8 weeks, if not more, depending on the candidate's history and that kind of thing. So it just depends on the candidate and the role that we're sort of recruiting to. I don't know if you've got more figures, Ben, around specific times to hire.
Yeah, I mean, I can give an anecdotal, Hung, is that Sally's probably covered there, but you're probably looking at a window of probably 4 or 5 months as an entry level for a staff role. A uniform role could be anything between 6 to 12 months to not only just align for all those checks, but then actually an intake. So when you're recruiting for a uniformed role, they are going on to a training course for a number of years that they will do a split of I'm being trained, but also I'm learning in the field. And actually you need to be able to make a class of those up. However you refer to it, it's an intake of a number of people, and you need to align those. So I think Lorna just did a very big nod on her screen then, which is great. You're looking between, it can be anything up to a year, and that's not unheard of. So that's the piece which brings back that piece of how do you stop that dropout within 12 months? Because if I said to everybody today on the call, where are you in 12 months time? If you apply today for a job, it really is an eye-opener. And actually, certainly when I first joined the police force, having come from a very agile recruitment background, my jaw hit the table. So anything you can do to squeeze that by hours, days, weeks is a huge impact.
Also, we talk about candidate relationship, candidate experience. That's a totally different story when you're talking about this length of time to hire. You can't just have a flashy sort of experience. You've got to have a continuous kind of relationship with people to make sure that they're coming to you carry them with. And of course, it just occurred to me that basically because of the length it takes for people to get through, presumably most people are kind of in-work candidates, aren't they? Because if you're unemployed and looking, you probably can't you probably can't wait around for it. So you're probably in work doing something else, and then that's bubbling away in the background, and then you would come in to join.
Absolutely. And flip that, dare I say, if you're neighbouring to another police force, the competition internally politely is why could I not apply to one if not the other? So you could be politely going through for 2 applications at the same time, and the other place wouldn't know because it's the same eligibility, same criteria. Certainly from a English forcing wise, Lorna, I guess, from a Scottish perspective, might see it where the force location borders. Sally, I know from a Derbyshire and Leicestershire perspective, you've got the framework around of other police forces. So it's a lovely thing to be part of a huge, big conglomerate, but you have also your external competition of your neighbouring police force. Very
interesting. Lorna, can you hear us? And we're still having voice issues, I'm afraid to say, with Lorna. Lorna, I wish I could suggest better things, but I can only say, can you refresh the browser? I mean, this is the level of IT support I can provide, I'm afraid.
It worked for me earlier, so fingers crossed.
Yeah, it might just be a browser refresh, because I think we can see the video fine, but for some reason, no good on audio. But whilst we're talking about this, I'm assuming that the forces don't share candidate data. Is that correct? So you've got a different instance of an ATS, even if it's the same ATS or different, it's completely separate. There's no sort of, okay, we've got this guy or this girl in process, please keep away. You just don't know. They're literally going through a flow separately.
Absolutely. Yeah. So they're very much silo, no different than if you were applying for a retail job and you apply for Tesco's and Sainsbury's on the same retail part. They are, that they both sell food, I guess, is the the complexity level there.
Yeah. Okay. Very interesting. I want to talk about seasonality. Does it go like, do you hire cohorts of people in a season, or is it like, okay, we as and when we need with attrition, or do you pre-plan it? We're thinking, okay, we need to increase our force numbers by 100 this year, therefore we've got it all organized, and it works similarly, let's say, to a graduate recruitment scheme. How does it work?
Do you want me to go first on that one? So for ours, we our recruitment manager and team plan using a campaign plan. So they'll have requested figures or required figures that we'll need to maintain, and they'll plan ahead throughout the year and continuously plan ahead. So it's like a rolling campaign plan, based on the targets that we've been set, and obviously set against attrition as well. So you've got to plan ahead as what we're looking for, but also take into account the attrition you may have during that period as well. And we'll plan that out for cohorts. So we'll have campaigns open, which will be a vacancy open, and then that will fill the planned cohorts that we've got for the near future. And obviously, as Ben mentioned earlier, because of the length of the potential applicant process, people do move between cohorts as well, as per we will fill a cohort as people are ready and get through their pre-employment checks.
Can we just quickly talk about the that human experience there? Because you talk about these cohorts, and you've already referenced it can be quite a long application process. How do you optimize that? How do you optimize that journey for someone, and how do you ensure it's a good candidate experience?
So from our side, we have spent the last few years sort of focusing on this. So we've taken feedback from candidate surveys, candidate forums, where they'll let us know about how their experience was moving through the recruitment process, specifically through cohorts as well. It's quite useful to gain their feedback because they're potentially in there for a longer period of time than other role types. So what we do is take that feedback. Recruitment officers are really good as well to pick up on feedback, either from from the candidates or from where they can see sticking points in the process as well. So what we've kind of done is focused on the feedback that we've given, mix that into the sort of any regulatory changes we get and all that kind of thing. And then we've focused on the process and where it would be sort of optimum for the candidate to have sort of guidance and I don't know, sort of targeted content for them. So we've sort of implemented as much automation as possible so it makes it easier for the candidate to move through the process. And we've also implemented functionality like Talent Engage, where at certain points in the application process, when the candidate logs into the recruitment system or applicant tracking system, they'll be presented with targeted content for that time. So for example, if they logged in at interview booked status, they'd see interview guidance, there'd be potential helpful videos that the force have created. And then sort of if you move into the pre-employment checks, you'll have guidance on the fitness test, helpful videos on that. So we've got some YouTube videos for that. And kind of tried to build up a profile of targeted content for that candidate at the right time. There's a lot of information that we can sort of push out to a candidate, and it's a lot to take in. So to be able to spread it out over the process as a whole has been really valuable for us, and it's made a really a big difference to the process for candidates because it's there as they need it.
Yeah, on-demand information. I think that's one of the big differences I've seen to improve candidate experience generally. Like, ambiguity is the biggest stressor for everyone. So if you are not sure about something and you want to have an information, you've got to be able to provide it either publicly, or if you can't, then can you provide something with a chatbot, let's say, or, you know, deliver it via an SMS or whatever it is. Like, we all know this is the case when we're, you know, traveling, booking flights or taking an Uber or whatever it is. The provision of information about where you're at in process is actually the thing that reduces your stress. It's not the fact of waiting for the taxi to arrive. It's just how long are you waiting? You know, where am I in stage? So yeah,
absolutely.
very
Yeah, I mean, our aim is to reduce the anxiety that the candidate might be going through as they move through the process, and just to keep them engaged. So we've introduced things like automated, or not automated, but scheduled communications to the candidates. So when they pass certain stages of the process, they're updated at that stage as well. So obviously there are many facets to your pre-employment checks, and you can be sat in that status for a long time. So it's useful to then have an update to the candidate to say, great, you've passed your vetting, or you've passed your fitness test, or, you know, just to give them that engagement throughout the process, and just to let them know that, yeah, we are still here and we are still processing your application, and to give guidance at the right points as well.
Yeah.
The analogy I've got here is just the progress bar, isn't it? Like, you just want to, it's like you just want to see I'm moving forward. If I'm not moving forward, then just blast me out. That's fine. But you know what? Don't leave me with an ambiguous position where actually I don't know. Lorna, I do believe we might have you on AV, everything good and bad. So tell us, can you hear us?
Okay? Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes. Brilliant. Round of applause for Lorna for battling with the tech for at least half an hour. That's beyond the call of duty. Thank you very much. Lorna, why don't you quickly introduce yourself? Who are you? What it is you do?
So I'm Lorna Allison. I'm the e-recruitment systems manager for Police Scotland. I was previously a police officer for 30 years here in Scotland. My background is recruiting police constables. And I've since then moved into a new role where I'm the e-recruitment systems manager in Scotland.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for joining us. And again, another person with experience, I guess, from different angles on hiring for the police. Let's dive into it. We've talked about sort of improvement of candidate experience and so on. Can you tell me how you've measured that in Police Scotland, Lorna? Because, you know, we all want to improve the experience of candidates, but how do we actually track it? How do we know it's working? And what have you learned from any sort of initiatives that you've applied yourself within the last couple of years that you know would work the next time if you're working in a different force?
Yeah, so candidate experience is really important to us. And one of the main ways we do that is be quite bold about taking feedback from people. It's quite a bold thing to do, actually, when you're taking it from rejected people, because you have to be open-minded enough to take the bad and the good. So we do have a commitment to making sure that we have regular surveys built into our system electronically that present. And then we do have a governance group that looks at all the surveys on a quarterly basis. And then we have a group that goes and looks at it and decides what they're going to do with the feedback. And in actual fact, we do get trends within that feedback, and it's those things that we've used to make sort of service improvements for the candidate experience, or even just service improvements in terms of our process itself. It's really helpful data. So I mean, that's probably the main one. We try and listen to the people that are involved in the processes. I would say that's the best way we go about it.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm gonna have to ask you about a trend here, Lorna. Is there anything you could share with us that maybe surprised you a little bit in terms of
I mean, our biggest feedback in terms of trends is frustration at the delays in the process. Time to hire. We do have people who move very quickly. I know you were talking about time to hire earlier on. Ours is very much based on location demand within Scotland. So some of our urban areas like Glasgow and Edinburgh are very, very popular. We have a lot of candidates, and therefore people wait for a longer amount of time. Whereas up in our rural locations, we are desperate for people to go and relocate up to some of the more outlying areas. So they tend to be recruited very quickly. So the feedback we get in terms of those people that are maybe waiting in the pipeline a bit longer than they would want to for their post. And there's certain bits of the process as well that cause that, sort of like vetting and background checks that are a bit of delays and things. So that's where we're trying to hone in just now to try and see if we can improve that and reduce that down.
That's brilliant. Again, you've educated me here, Lorna. I didn't realize, of course, there is a location requirement for frontline police, right? There's a beat like you, and there's certain beats, I guess, are going to be more popular than others. Can you tell us a little bit about what makes a sort of a particular location popular? Is it? I mean, I would say a rural place would be better, wouldn't it? Like it's like quieter. I mean, I'm not gonna get involved with like serious issues. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I mean,
so I think with that one, most of our population and an actual pipeline of candidates are coming from those areas. So if we are maybe suggesting to somebody that we need officers up in Shetland, for instance, we don't always get to recruit from the local community there. We do try and encourage it. But we quite often find that people have to relocate. So it's quite a big commitment to people to up sticks and move from the likes of an urban place like Glasgow up to Shetland, a completely different way of life. And the other barrier is that we quite often find that sometimes from rural communities, you don't want to work where they live. So we tend to get more people willing, need to relocate to those areas as opposed to people from the local community wanting to work as a police officer and live there as well. So there's a few things within that.
Is the rule of thumb that big metropolitan areas are generally more applicants? So in other words, you've got the problem of dealing with over application, let's say, but then in the rural areas, the less obvious places, actually there's a shortage of candidates, and that's where you have to do different things to acquire.
Exactly that. We have to work harder for our rural locations, do a lot more attraction. Whereas the likes of this sort of main belt in Scotland, where all the sort of urban areas are, we don't really do an awful lot there. We tend to be able to generate our applications, no problem at all, coming from there.
Right. Ben, you're nodding your head as well. I think it seems to be a pattern. So I'm again assuming that changes your sort of attraction strategy, right? So
hugely.
Do you bother advertising if you're hiring in London, let's say, or hiring in Glasgow because you're going to be inundated? Do you have another way to find candidate? Do you have to advertise actually? I mean, by law, you have to do it.
So I think you have to appreciate a couple of things. You will get a vast number of dropouts for a number of reasons. They're not eligible. So being a police officer or working for police is a fairly tight number of people. So there's lots of legal eligibility. So actually there's lots of people that want to, but unfortunately can't. There are geographic, you never know when somebody's applying where they're based. There's a very great classic hub, but I'm based in a few minutes out of Bristol. It can take 20 minutes on a good day to get into the city. On a bad day, it can take over an hour. So geographic wise, actually where you're basing yourself is difficult. You've also got to appreciate, Lorna, I can only begin to imagine the types of numbers, but most police forces have, certainly 3,500, 4,000, and even in some set police officers when I was there. That's a carousel in itself of people who might want to move geographically from one station to another. So as well as everything that's happening, if you think we've just started the conversation saying it's 12 months to recruit somebody, you have the internal movement, promotion, attrition. So you've almost got two carousels running at each other. It's a joyous circus. I've been there. I've seen it happen. Lorna's grinning away in the corner of my screen, so I know she has, and I can know from Sally's perspective it works the same. So actually you tend to do two things. You will advertise in generic, this is where we're looking for. You may do supported advertising for particular postcodes or geographic areas. In terms of encouragement of, we are geographically struggling in this area. Lorna brings a very key point though. For most people, if you lived in a particular small rural town or village, the last thing you want to be doing is actually policing that for a number of reasons. A, security for yourself. But B, actually, there's those difficult conversations that, actually working the next town over is probably a better piece. So it's then down to somebody's ability to commute to those locations, the same as we probably do for our own day jobs.
Yeah, very interesting. And on the advertising side, I mean, what kind of techniques are used? Do you use a lot of field advertising, for instance, when you're doing sort of hiring in rural places? Like, do you just stick it on a bunch of buses and stuff, or is it again online? I mean, do you just put it on Indeed and stuff? Where do you distribute the advertising spend?
Lorna, do you want to have a?
Yeah, I mean, we use social media a lot. We target specific areas. We've tried everything, I would say is the best way to describe it. We've tried buses, we've tried the cinemas, we've tried the airport carousels, all that kind of thing. We've had different varying success. We've even tried TV campaigns. They are very weak for us. They don't work for us at all. So the social media is the strongest one. But we do have other channels that we use as well. Like, for instance, internally, we use, we've already managed to figure out that a lot of applicants do come from having a connection to the police already. So like friends and family, if they've got friends in the service or family in the service. So we've honed in on that a little bit. And internally, we do a lot as well to try and encourage people. We do events, and it's the events themselves that actually encourage people to come through. But I would say social media is the main one.
Yeah.
We use.
I think another really key one here, Hung, and Sally would probably agree to this one, is talent banking. So certainly,
I was just going to mention that. Yeah.
I was going to say.
We go on. Sorry, Ben.
I was going to say we used to do a lot of work. So within a policing sphere, the numbers can be not only influenced by natural attrition or an increase in headcount, but throughout the times that I've been there, many of you remember that Boris Johnson pulled something which was called Uplift, which was a UK wide, we need a huge amount of police officers, therefore everyone's going to be given some funding allocation, therefore you need to get them. There's a more recent piece called Neighbourhood Pledge, which is a similar idea to bring neighbourhood police officers. When you're not necessarily running that cohort, you hit to a police force website, old school, and it would just be, sorry, we're not open. We've already talked around it's a sort of a mentality of somebody that wants to do that job, because let's be honest, it's a little bit Marmite. It's seen as, so actually talent pools and talent banks are ultimately key as a really clever way of engaging people. We saw a lot of use of it back at Avon and Somerset. Sally and I, ironically, both when I was sat at Avon and Somerset and Sally is at Derbyshire, work quite closely together. So that's why we talk quite convincingly, because we know each other quite well. Sally, I think you've done quite a lot of work in your talent pooling.
Yeah, that's something we've worked on over the last sort of year and a half now, to implement a number of talent hubs, if you like. So we found that, again, like Ben mentioned, when you're not open for a campaign, you still get a lot of interest. So whether that's through the recruitment events that you're offering throughout the year, or just through word of mouth or contacts at the force, and people want to register their interest ready for when their campaign's open. So we did a lot of work on developing talent hubs. So we've got a talent hub for uniform roles, which covers police officers, specials and PCSOs, and then we've got a separate talent hub for police staff as well, and you can link between the two. But they're becoming sort of invaluable as sort of new source for us to call upon for applicants, especially around the police officer role. So anyone who's registered an interest, we can send them the campaign details as soon as the campaign's open. So you've initially got a pot of people to apply, but also for those sort of hard to fill roles as well. So there are people who are registering interest just because they want to work for the police, and that's great, but they're just waiting for the right role. So that's great when it comes to hard to fill roles, because we can look at, right, who've we got with that skill set, send them the details of the vacancies we've got open. Obviously they're advertised externally as well, but you've initially got that pot of people to offer the vacancy out to.
And how do you use those talent hubs then to constantly communicate to those people who are interested? Because I imagine your campaigns come and go. You're not continuously hiring. There could be quite some time, right, until the next hiring cohort.
Yeah, so our talent acquisition team are really hot on that population of people. So they will send out newsletters to the talent hub. We call it talent hub within these forces. So we send newsletters out with information on what's going on within the force, what recruitment events are coming up potentially, and then obviously when the vacancies are live, we'll send them the vacancy information as well. So it's just to keep that engagement while they're sat in that pot, and we know that we want them to know that we know they're still there. We're really grateful that they've shown an interest in the forces, and we're still using that, to search their data when we get relevant vacancies come up.
Mm.
Sorry, go ahead, Tommy.
Well, Hung, I was just actually going to ask you. Actually, I'll ask you a question. So you're learning a lot about police today, and I wonder what your overall thoughts are. I mean, there's a lot of details shared here. It strikes me as almost very much best in class uses of processes to drive, I guess, very complex and detailed hiring. But what are your thoughts comparing, contrasting against across industries, which you see a lot of? What are your thoughts on what you've heard?
Yeah, I think it's fascinating. I mean, it's a totally different type of recruitment. It's the cohort-based hiring. I kind of had a suspicion that would be the case, but I didn't realize that was the general case. I think there's probably should be more candidate sharing between the forces, I would guess. One of my question was to Sally actually was the talent hub. Is that like a shared pot, so to say, or is that per force?
The applicants to the talent hub can indicate which force they're interested in applying for, so they can indicate Derbyshire or Leicestershire or both.
Right. Yeah. So, and if they indicate, so I can see it's a central website. I sign in as a candidate, and basically I tick from a drop down all of the forces I might be interested in, and then those forces then get access to my data, I guess. No.
No.
It's still no. So it's still a shared HR service centre. So it's only the shared HR service centre staff have access to the shared pot, if you like, and then they will be sent relevant roles for the force that they've indicated an interest in.
Interesting. So interesting.
Yeah, I think there's a piece there, Hung. So in general, the College of Policing will host lots of information. They're the central repository for uniform type roles for England. They will quite often host to say, we know when someone's open for a role, but it is down very much to each individual force or group of forces to manage their own candidates within that kind of framework or pot.
And that's quite similar to other public sector organisations as well. Yeah. So you say NHS, that operates like that. Local government operates like that too. But yeah, in a visionary approach, perhaps more sharing. There could be perhaps a future framework, perhaps. But Hung, just wondering if maybe we should invite Lorna to talk about another step on from and to talk about some of the innovation about AI. What some of the challenges that Police Scotland were looking to solve, and then what solutions that they were considering, and then how they brought them in.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was one of the key things we wanted to explore. Like, it did strike me actually that AI could solve a lot of these issues. So, Lorna, I wonder whether you could take us through it. Like, can you give us a snapshot of like what the case was before, and then what's happened since then?
Yeah. So just very quickly, we came from a very old-fashioned organisation with no technology at all back in 2020, 21, working from buckets and pieces of paper to having our ATS and brought Olio into the organisation. And so we instantly saw lots of efficiency, lots of manual duplication of effort all getting removed. So once we had done that, we wanted to take ourselves to the next step. And that's when we started considering what other tools were out there. And AI was sort of top of our agenda for various reasons. And one of the main was we wanted to position ourselves as more modern, because we didn't want to be kind of stuck in the past, looking a wee bit clumsy and old-fashioned. So we thought that's a key way of making ourselves looking modern, but also solving some of the efficiency issues that we have. And one of the problems that we were trying to solve was this sort of duplication in effort in terms of administration of mailboxes. That was a top one for us. When we looked at our processes and where our pinch points were, huge effort in relation to common queries, common questions, repetitive information and queries coming into the organisation, and it was taking our teams a lot of time to respond to the same things, and so entered in our first project that we had in relation to AI, which was introduction of an AI chatbot. And we thought that would be a really good way of solving this problem, but also our first sort of step towards introducing AI tools. So that's what we did. Our project was very successful. It was quick and it was efficient and it was low cost as well. So we very quickly, having a small project within a space of 6 to 8 weeks, we managed to solve some of the challenges that we had. We're still monitoring it, we're still looking at it and to see what the impact of that has within the organisation. But our early analysis showed that we had a 30% reduction in inquiries coming into our mailboxes, and that, most importantly, has freed up our recruiters' time, because if we can take our recruiters away from doing that kind of manual administration type task, it means they can go and be doing other things that we need them to be doing, like the attraction and the events and all the other kind of things that we've been talking about on the call today.
Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, recruitment is one of those jobs that's kind of like plagued by interrupts, isn't it? Like where everything's buzzing all the time. And you can imagine if you're fielding as sort of inbound inquiries, which, you know, with your customer service hat on, your candidate experience hat on, you want to deliver great service. So you're on it. But that you kind of do that for a little while, and then suddenly your day's gone and you've got nothing going on. So implementation of a chatbot makes perfect sense. I'm quite interested to know what just as a sidebar, like what were the common questions? I mean, was there any pattern there? Like what kind of stuff do you get?
So they differed across the different role types, but if we take police officer for an example, it's things like, do you need a driving license to join the police? You know, can you join the police if you have criminal convictions? It was kind of this very similar queries coming in, and then very similar emails going out from the team. So in order to sort of replace that, it is really good being able to just put it into the chatbot. It comes back with all the information, and actually probably comes back with a lot more information and a lot more context than you maybe potentially get from an administrator sending it out from an email box, because it's got more time to present the information and also suggest where you can go for further information as well. So we've certainly seen a huge reduction in those kind of common questions coming in to us. I mean, what I will say is we do have a lot of information on our websites, but we're finding that candidates aren't really willing to go and look at the website and find it for themselves. They want to just, you know, put it in and get the answer instantly like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Behavior's changing. I mean, you know, as a marketer, I'm following the Google search trend and pivot from the old school classic search of trying to ask a question and then search through multiple search results looking for your answer. You click on kind of 1 to 10 kind of search results and go on the website, find the answer yourself. That's hard work, right? Compared to ChatGPT, Google Gemini, where you ask a question, it gives you the answer, right? We're all kind of starting to expect that sort of experience. So exactly what you said, Lorna. Yeah, I can imagine that. I don't want to look through 10, 15 links or paragraphs to find the answer. Just give it to me. Make it easy.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Ben, go ahead, Ben.
I was just saying, very interesting as that as well, because we've just talked, I think I said earlier in the call, but competitive market. Police is very much I want to be there or I don't, if two forces are open at the same time. If I can get my response through a chatbot 24/7, my thought of being an applicant drop off is probably a lot less. And we're all used to instant nowadays. And I certainly know from a policing perspective, to come into a recruitment inbox, Laura, I'm not picking numbers for you, but it sometimes on a Monday morning, I remember it was hundreds.
Yes.
You know, there were, you know, we're not talking small amount, we're talking multiple inboxes with hundreds that somebody would then just sit and help to work their way through them. Whereas if you're taking 30% off, I can only imagine back in the day, I would have loved to have had that, because I can imagine the time, and actually great candidate experience.
And the other thing just to bring out as well, we've actually got it for internal people as well. So it's not just external. No. And this is like our police officers who are serving police officers who are applying for different roles across the country. Now they're at their work 24/7. So they're actually applying for jobs or engaging with their recruitment processes in the middle of the night, or, you know, at back shift or whatever, when the recruitment team are not traditionally at their work, because we're very much, you know, a sort of day shift job. And so therefore it gave them that ability as well to have a kind of 24/7 chat, so that they could ask questions about applications, that kind of thing. Where do they get support? Even just very simple things like, how do I contact for resetting passwords, that kind of thing. So that has also reduced dramatically the administration Monday morning nightmare that we all come into, that Ben talks about, that, you know, having to clear that on, you know, first thing at the start of the week, because we've got somebody else doing the heavy lifting for us.
That's fantastic. In terms of sort of, I mean, I'm hoping, I'm guessing that a successful implementation like this, Lorna, would kind of make it easier for the acceptance of further innovation within the organization. Have you found that? And if so, what are the other areas that you're looking to potentially deploy some AI in?
Yeah, so I think, I mean, the minute we started talking about AI, we got a very risk averse reaction to it because it is policing. We can be risk averse to change, particularly when we start talking about topics like AI, when some people are uncertain about that still, maybe a bit undecided. So we had to have a few barriers to overcome. So we had to work a bit harder in terms of consultation and engaging with stakeholders and, bringing it to life and doing all that kind of stuff. But I think now that we've done that, and we've chosen that as a good stepping project, I think we're probably in a good place now to start having the conversation about the other tools that we want to use. For us, our focus is probably going to be on the bits of the pipeline that are high volume. So our next project, and we've already sort of bottomed it out and done the business cases for screening. AI and at the sort of screening and shortlist stage, so we can try and make that more efficient as well and try and reduce the time at that stage of the process.
Yeah, so this is, I understand, screening meaning looking at a document, looking at an application. Right now, it's a human process, it's a human review. But you know what? The human's actually reviewing, kind of looking for the same things or looking for the same green or red flags, whatever you want to call it. That should be something that automation can take care of.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll still have that sort of human approach to it as well. We won't replace it completely, but the tool that we're looking at will allow us to do that. But it's got such a high volume for some of our roles there, and it's humans that are doing all of the heavy lifting there. So, and it is a bit of the pipeline that we can get some problems in terms of the time it takes to get through some high volume roles. I mean, some of our roles attract hundreds and hundreds of applicants at a time. So we need to start thinking about how we can use an AI tool like that to try and help us become more efficient.
Yeah, I think a lot of people in the private sector have encountered the same thing. It's like there's initial hesitation, but then you think, hang on, a human being that's inundated with the need to review 100 plus kind of applications, they're not going to do a good job with that because they don't have the time. They're going to reduce the amount per applicant. And what kind of fair treatment is a two-second glance at a CV? That's not going to do the job. Ben, let's go to you on sort of maybe the wider piece. How prevalent is the use of AI within the forces generally? Can you give us a general picture? Like, is Lorna, for instance, in Police Scotland a little bit ahead of the curve with the rest of the police, or is it kind of, generally speaking, you can see innovation like this going in different parts of the force?
Yeah, I think Lorna is a fantastic ambassador and a spearhead for it. Police Scotland have taken some really big steps over the last months to do so. We're beginning to see a lot more drive with police forces. I think certainly the UK government has given more of a penciled green light saying, we should start looking at these things. The Olio Q chatbot that Lorna has brought in, we're now seeing is being rolled out across a number of police forces and lots of interest. They're a cautious bunch, the police. Sally will probably laugh when I say that. But generally, if somebody else has tried it first, they're very much, okay, well, actually, we'll give this a go. It's a proven result. Lorna's 30% is a figure that we've seen. And actually, my gosh, that's wonderful. It does free up recruiters' time. It gives them more ability. The piece that Lorna was talking around, the skills assess piece with the actual being able to do your sort of soft skills assessing for behavioural and competency, it's huge. Recruiters and hiring managers just don't have the time. We all know the concept of just before lunch, you're probably hungry and I'm going to belt through an application, and at 5:05, I just want to go home and I've still got 20 to do. We've all been there. We've all tried to remain, so something like the skills assess tool, which is great for us because it's a safe tool. It's using human in the loop decision making. So actually it's providing some suggestions. It's not saying to you, here's what you've got to score somebody, is a great piece. We're seeing a lot of interest from police forces with that, along exactly the same conversation that Lorna's having. It can be, certainly with a cohort on both police staff and officer, a bit of a flood and famine. So in sense that we open the doors for something and you're inundated and then it shuts. We also don't know, I guess, as police forces, certainly from a uniform perspective, what's coming around the corner. Because I said, certainly from an England perspective, we had two huge uptakes in the last 4 or 5 years, there's nothing to say that there's going to be another one. You don't necessarily, certainly in recruitment teams, have a mass flex of staff that you can suddenly upskill. So actually the AI tools are the perfect solution to be able to support and give that you can then turn the resource that you have for candidate engagement in terms of personal connection and actually supportive for that journey that we know we may not be able to change. Certainly your vetting, referencing those kind of elements.
That's very interesting. Talking about the vetting side, I mean, there's a lot of AI sort of solutions coming into that side of things as well. I mean, is that an area where you think you could gain some sort of efficiency as well? Or is there sort of, because it is so important, maybe the most critical part of the process, is it something that is perhaps more resilient as is, like the traditional way is going to be more persistent?
I think that would be a cautious as is. I think there's quite a lot of careful things that you can do, and I'm going to pass to Sally. So, for example, Sally has changed the way that they ask for references, which is helped.
So a while back we also looked at as you get to sort of the pre-employment checks and through the application process, a lot of feedback from candidates was that the application is too big. And it puts people off completing the application form. So what we did was review what's in the application form when we actually need that information and split it out. So now we have the application form up front, so for all role types, and then only at the point that someone's a successful candidate and would then start to move into the pre-employment checks, such as your vetting, fitness, medical, that kind of thing. That's the point that we then ask them for their references, residency information. Because in conjunction with information security, when you think about it, we don't need that information as early as we probably had it in the process, but now sort of GDPR moves on and you get more, clearer guidance. So we move towards asking for that information later in the process when we need it. And that was great because it meant that we had up-to-date information at the point that we needed it, rather than asking for an application and then potentially not needing it for a few weeks or months. So we implemented that a while back, and that's made a massive difference. We automated the reference process. So we asked the candidates for reference information at pre-employment checks. It's automated within the system. So the system sends out the reference request emails to the referees the candidates put on the form. So that takes away all the manual intervention of a recruitment officer having to send an Outlook email to each referee. And then the referee can complete a form that's automatically then returned back to the candidate record within the ATS, that can then be reviewed by a human. So the recruitment officer will review all those and make a decision on those references. So yeah, that's kind of where we went with the pre-employment checks stage.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Lorna, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the vetting part is probably the one that there would be a lot of caution about within our organisation. I think it's probably one of the last ones we would look at, just because of the complexities of it and the different systems that we use. I think I might keep that one for further down the line and try the rest of the process first, to be honest. But you never say never, though. You never know, because it is another part of the process, that just as Sally's describing, and trying to automate it and have things being organised better. It is another bit of the process that's well worth looking at as well, to be honest, in the future.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. Okay, looking at sort of the time, we've only got a couple of minutes left, so let's do some future focus stuff. I mean, if we could kind of, all best case, positive case, everything goes well, next 12 months, what kind of progress would you like to see in the forces that you're working with? And Ben, on your side, on the vendor side, where would you like to see some of the customers kind of make the best success? But let's go with you first, Lorna. Next 12 months down the pipe, where would you like the Police Scotland to be if we had this conversation in 2027?
Yep, in a year's time, we would like to have more AI tools live on our system. I think it's as simple as that. We want to be able to introduce them to the key parts, maybe one or two at least, moving on from our success with the AI chatbot, and then being able to evidence in a year's time how that's impacted on the time to hire and taking away some of that inefficiency that we still potentially have in our processes. So yeah, trying to get ourselves further forward with AI again in 12 months' time.
Yeah, fantastic. How about you, Sally?
Exactly the same as Lorna. So Lorna's obviously ahead of the game with the AI chatbot, which we're interested in. Same with the screening functionality and the interview functionality as well. And I think just within governance, embracing the technology as we have so far, just to take away those sort of the focus on administrative tasks and keep moving towards more and more value-added tasks that mean the recruitment officers can spend more valuable time with the applicants.
Yeah, fantastic. And Ben, from your perspective, I mean, I guess looking at the whole sweep of it, where would you like to see the entire sort of police force be in 12 months' time?
Small challenge there. Yeah, I think that buy-in to the AI adoption piece across all police forces, I think that needs to be driven far more by the government, and I think it's beginning to. But just getting all those teams aligned internally, your ICT teams, your recruitment teams, because actually people like Lorna have proven benefit. We have lots of examples of great time and efficiency savings. That it's all about cost and efficiency, and I think that would be a really good win for them. And also to make you seem more competitive as an organization, because if you can speed up your process, you're going to get more people through the door. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and I can understand that internal competition between the forces, isn't there? There always is in this type of structure. So to be the best of breed within a certain class of part of recruitment, I think, is something that people will be competitive and a worthy prize to shoot for. Okay, fantastic stuff. Well, let me thank you all for joining us in this conversation. I feel like I've cost the country some policing sort of time here. So I really appreciate you spending an hour with us and educating me and everyone else about how recruitment works in the police force, and very promising to see technology innovation happening in this essential service. So Ben Hopkins, thanks for joining. Sally Winfield, thanks for joining. Lorna Allison, particularly thanks for joining and wrestling with the tech. We got there in the end. And Tommy Light, thanks for being a brilliant co-pilot. It's been a great show. Hopefully you've enjoyed listening to all of this. Everyone's going to get a recording of it, but we'll leave it there for now. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll be back later this week.